Well, with the Republicans suffering a bitter loss in Kari Lake not being able to win her gubernatorial bid to become governor of Arizona, and let's just face it, she's amazing, she's outstanding, she is smart, she is tough, she is funny, she is engaging, she is absolutely the real deal. And the fact that she lost out in Arizona, first of all, it's a loss to the people of Arizona. It's a loss to the nation. It's a loss for we who are conservative Republicans, and it hurts. And of course, instead of getting real analysis or investigation into what's going on, we're going to get from Mitch McConnell, the rhinos, and the lying legacy corporate corrupt mainstream media, it's Donald Trump's fault. Of course, the Democrats are going to love to jump on this bandwagon, but is it really as simple as that? Is it Donald Trump's fault that, quote unquote, his candidates did not fare well in these midterm elections? Again, that's not the full picture. Look at a place like New York. I mean, Zeldin almost pulled it off. And he didn't quite pull it off, obviously, in the gubernatorial race, but up and down the ballot and up and down the state of New York, conservative Republicans flipped deep blue Democratic seats for the Congress. We are going to take the Congress. We're not going to take, obviously, the Senate. And is that Donald Trump's fault? Or is that Mitch McConnell's fault? Now let's take a look at Arizona for just a moment and that gubernatorial race there. There were all kinds of problems in one particular county where the vast majority of the votes are, people having to wait in line 3 and 4 hours because vote tabulators weren't working. They couldn't print ballots because they ran out of toner. And on and on and on it went. And it just so happens that Kari Lake's opponent, the now governor-elect Cobbs, whatever her name is, was in charge of the oversight of that election area. She was in charge of the enforcement of election protection and laws there. Didn't think she ought to maybe, in a hotly contested race like this, recuse herself, back away. Take a look at her and take a look at Joe Biden, and what do the two of them have in common? They campaigned entirely from their homes. Katie Hobbs refused to go out and really do events where she was going to be pressed by the press or have to in any way face her opponent and refuse to debate her. Absolutely refuse to debate her. And yet, supposedly now, she has won Arizona. And again, I don't want to cry foul or that there might be a problem, but there were some voting irregularities and issues in Arizona. And are we going to take an honest look at that? A lot of it could simply be people who were trying to go to work and vote couldn't do it because of 3 and 4 hour wait lines. And it's not like at Disney where you can spend an extra $100 after you've already paid $100 to get in there and get an advance pass to take you to the front of the line. Doesn't work that way. I'm sure that there were literally hundreds and thousands of people who simply got in their cars and didn't vote. It would be interesting if we could hear from those people en masse. And not the same one or two over and over repeated on everybody's show from, Tucker to Hannity, but literally if we heard from the thousands of people say, I can get to vote. But of course, the real issue is that has to be fixed. The whole way some of these states and this endless voting that goes on for weeks and months. We know ballot boxes that aren't properly looked after. We know all of the problems. It's fixable. States like Florida fixed it. Remember a few years ago, we dreaded on election night having to wait for results from Florida because of hanging chads? Well, Florida really, they fixed it. States like Ohio can get it done. There are many states that they can get it done in the night, even though they have Big populations. Texas can get it done in a night. Arizona, we're over a week into this thing. California, we're over a week in. They still aren't finished. So we've got some issues, but there is one thing that Kellyanne Conway, former member of Team Trump and campaign advisor, she made an astute observation. She's absolutely right. We know every year there's a problem when it comes to all of the mail-in voting. It's always going to lean heavily in the Democratic favor. Why are we not doing anything to offset that? When are we as Republicans and conservatives? I understand we want to fix where it's broken in some of these states, and they absolutely needs to be fixed. But before we can fix it, we've got to get a governor in the governor's chair. We've got to get a conservative, we've got to get a Republican in the governor's mansion. So to get that person to that position, we need to employ some Democratic tactics here. And one is we need to get on board with the early voting in places where there are Democratic strongholds, where the vote goes heavily in their favor in the beginning. We need to make our presence felt. We need to offset that. Once we have taken a governorship, once we have flipped it, then we can set about actually fixing the system, because we need a governor and we need an attorney general in these states to get these issues fixed. So, but before we can fix it, let's just go ahead and employ the same tactics the Democrats do. And to quote Larry the Cable Guy, get her done. But again, is this really Donald Trump's fault that the midterm elections went the way they went? Jordan Peterson, a renowned political commentator, was on with Piers Morgan, who wanted to know, is this Donald Trump's fault? Is this now finally the end of MAGA?
Donald Trump, what is he? Is he a narcissist, a sociopath, a psychopath? All of those things? None of them?
I don't think that he's a psychopath because he's been successful in repeated enterprises over long periods of time, and he has a variety of people who remain intensely loyal to him. It's very easy to demonize someone that you don't approve of, let's say, and certainly Trump has been subject, I would say, to more demonization than any political leader in the West that I can remember in my entire lifetime, including Richard Nixon. And so that's also set him back on his heels and made him somewhat embattled and defensive, which I don't think did any great things for his personality in some real sense.
Boom, there it is. This lines right up with the commentary I just did the other day. That Donald Trump has been so maligned, viciously attacked, relentlessly attacked for 6 years. Day in, day out, Russian collusion. Didn't do this for Ukraine, and that led to a second impeachment, and on and on and on and on and on, and the rhinos and the never Trumpers, on and on and on, and members of his own party like the Paul Ryans and the Witness Protection Romneys and the Liz Cheneys openly talking and speaking against him and plotting against him. Like I said the other day, Mr. President, I get it. You were robbed of an opportunity while you were president to have the kind of legacy that you wanted to have. I really believe Donald Trump wanted to be a great president. And in many ways, he accomplished great things. But of course, that's not the narrative. Donald Trump was an existential threat, not because he's a threat to democracy. He was an existential threat to the status quo. He was an existential threat to the insiders. He was an existential threat to the political ruling class. He was not a member of that club. He didn't have his Playboy key to get in. And somehow, we the people picked him, voted for him, and now it's how dare we the people. That's just not going to happen again. And so they have vilified him. They have made him toxic. Kind of like they did with certain medications when there was an outbreak of love potion number 9. That said, the vilifying of him is the hopes of making him so toxic that even his base will pull away from him. And now what it has done, and I think Jordan Peterson is absolutely spot on right in his analysis, it's made Donald Trump very defensive and a little bit more vitriolic over the top because, again, he feels like he's been robbed, he's been denied. Now, we're on the eve of, in a few hours, he may be announcing another run for the presidency. Maybe he's not. He might. But I mean, here we are. And they are no doubt trying to get out in front of this. They do not want him to run again. That was what the whole January 6th hearings are about. It's all about trying to keep him from not running. And apparently what they have decided is they can't stop it. So what they're going to try to do is make him toxic. Not to the majority of the American people. No, nay. They want to Sarah Palin him. Say what, Pastor Marty? They want to Sarah Palin him. They want to make him repulsive to other Republicans. And in certain senses, you have to wonder if Donald Trump isn't playing into their hands by going after Ron DeSantis and others. And it's getting conservatives. What is he doing? Stop! And like I said, you got to put yourself in his shoes, understand what he's been through, understand how he's been lied about and vilified. And even when he was president, his own party for 2.5 years worked against him and stalled his agenda. And he feels like he was robbed the last time, or that he didn't get his second term. And I think there were many things that he wanted to do. And what he should have done in hindsight was he should have done them in his first terms. He should have done the things that would have won the mass majority of the populace over to him. But he didn't do that. But he did stand for some right things. I mean, come on. Those of you who are Christians, especially those of you who are pastors, know that he absolutely restored religious liberty in this nation. And those of you who are Jewish, what he did for Israel? Hello? Every president, including Obama, talked about it. Donald Trump did it. Moved our embassy to Jerusalem. And then other nations said, we can do it too. And on the world stage, he got NATO nations to pony up their fair share. He called what's happening right now in Europe. He called it. He said, you guys that are part of NATO and you want to live off the United States protecting you, yet you're taking all the money that you don't have to spend on defense and you're buying your energy from Russia. He had us energy independent. I mean, he did some phenomenal things that he never got any credit for. He was vilified as a dictator, as he was going to use fear to just bring in authoritarianism. Who is it that's used fear to bring in authoritarianism? Would that be Obama Biden constantly giving speeches about the MAGA Trump people and their existential threat to democracy? Well, who's the threat to democracy? Who is it that mandates? Who is it that says if we don't follow certain mandates, we lose our jobs, we lose our freedoms, etc., etc., etc.? Is that the left or the right doing that? And so the frustration within Donald Trump, it's real, it's palatable. And to a certain degree, we understand it. But of course, you're going to start hearing now, even from conservatives who like Donald Trump, maybe he shouldn't run. Why? Because they've Sarah Palin'd him. Sarah Palin did a phenomenal job as the governor of Alaska, but by the time the media and Saturday Night Live and Tina Fey got done with her, they had the vast majority of the American people thinking she was some type of bonehead. I know Republicans who said, I just could not vote for her. Why? Well, she was so stupid. She actually thought she could see Russia from her front porch. I said, you do know that was a Saturday Night Live skit, right? And with their allies in the media, with their allies in Hollywood, they were able to frame a narrative of Sarah Palin that, by the way, John McCain was completely useless in pushing back and defending. And he set her up to fail. And now, that same thing they're trying to do with Trump, all right? Can't stop him from running. So what we'll do is we'll make him absolutely toxic, even to his base. And so now we're going to hear who ought to save the party.
If I had my druthers, and I say this, I hope with due care, I would rather see someone like DeSantis step forward who shares some of that forthright strength, let's say, that characterizes Trump at his best, but seems to be a more cautious administrator and a less divisive figure.
I told you that was coming. It's going to be calls for DeSantis, because he's quote unquote, he's Trump without the hard edge. Remember this little campaign slogan we conservatives were taught a few years ago? Compassionate conservatism. Compassionate conservatism. Interesting, isn't it? Compassionate conservatism. George W. Bush, compassionate conservatism. How'd that work out for us? He was trying to distance himself from the meanness of what he considered to be Ronald Reagan, but he wanted Reagan voters, so that in his compassionate conservatism, he could declare an endless war on brown people in the Middle East. I like Ron DeSantis. I've said this before, and I don't want to keep having to repeat it. I helped get him elected when I was in Florida. He's a good man. But the party in Florida brought him to the right. He didn't bring the party to the right. They were the ones that got him to back off all of the COVID over-the-top restrictions and mandates. Because he was following in line with every other governor. He was right in lockstep. Schools were closed, beaches were closed, etc., etc. He gained political traction and became a rock star when he became Trump-esque within Florida. Do not think for a single moment he will behave like that in Washington, D.C. He's establishment. I like Ron DeSantis. Love what he's done for Florida. He needs to stay there and keep doing it. But the reality is, has Trump become so toxic? And those of us who are trying to get the word out know that there does come a point where even the majority of quote-unquote conservatives or Republicans might begin to think, I don't know. I mean, there's just so much baggage that comes with them, and it's just relentless and it's endless and it's and then young people vote by their emotions. Hollywood knows that. They have been successful. I mean, think about it. Mitch McConnell, the blame really lies with him, especially on the Senate. We had a real shot at taking back the Senate. He didn't want it. He had said last summer, we don't have quality candidates running for the Senate. Really? Quality candidates, huh? Dr. Oz was not a quality candidate, huh? I mean, you don't have to like the guy, but the man was a heart surgeon. He's done heart transplants. That's not exactly stupid. We didn't have quality candidates. We had Carrie Lake. We didn't have quality candidates. Are you kidding me? You didn't get behind them, Mitch. You didn't give them any Republican money, Mitch. Do you know that Mitch McConnell used GOP money to go against the Republican challenger in Alaska? In other words, Mitch McConnell used money in favor of the Democratic incumbent from Alaska. Because the guy running was too aligned with Trump. Wouldn't give any real support to Herschel Walker. Why? Because Herschel Walker was... Do you understand what kind of evil, maniacal dirtbag Mitch McConnell is? He's a dirtbag. If Republicans, in all your heart-wrenching soul-searching of what happened to the midterms, look in Bitch McConnell's direction. The people he withheld money from, the funds that he secretly funded, the super PACs that he secretly funded against Republicans. I told you this several days ago, and I'm going to reiterate it. Do I think Mitch McConnell and other key rhino Republicans would tank the midterms in the hopes of finally killing Donald Trump once and for all? Yes! That's where the real issue lies. Take a look at that. It's not Trump's fault.
Hi, my name is Quinn Pittman. I grew up here in these Florida woods. I like to hunt and fish on our land here in Osteen, Florida. When I was 7, I asked my parents if I could have a couple of milk goats so I could make cheese. I am 12 now, and I have a small goat herd. My dad built this barn to keep my goats safe from the bobcats and coyotes that sometimes roam our land. I milk them every day before school. I love spending time with my goats. I make ice cream and milk for some of my friends that are allergic to cow's milk, because every kid should be able to eat ice cream. I also make goat milk soap. It is better for your skin, it won't dry out, and it lasts a long time. I make it on our back porch with my mom. If you would like to try my soap, you can order it at quinnpittman.com or save a lot of money and place a subscription order. We will make sure you have plenty of freshly cured, fragrant goat milk soap in your home, just like we have in ours.